Hey guys, Mike Pond of PinoyPatriarchProject, and in today's episode, I want to speak about marriage. Now, I know this is kind of a deep topic, but I feel this is a very important topic, not just for myself, but for most of you watching this. Odds are, if you're watching this or following this Instagram or YouTube channel, you are a Filipino guy who is either married, maybe you've been married for, maybe you're newly married, maybe married for a few years, or maybe even a few decades. Or maybe you are a single Pinoy who wants to be married one day and you're trying to prepare yourself to become the best husband you can be. Now, I am not a marriage counselor. I am not a therapist. I am not a marriage expert. But my wife and I did celebrate 10 years of marriage this past July. In that decade, I've learned a lot about myself, not just about my wife and raising a family, but about myself as a man. And not only the things that I do well, but also the things I really needed to work on. And so I think there was a really great Jerry Seinfeld quote, and I'm probably butchering it, but he said something along the lines of like, marriage is the only thing that you can do for 10 years and still be considered a beginner, right? So I still feel like I'm a beginner in many ways when it comes to marriage, but I feel that after 10 years, there's certain lessons that I took. And I think this is really important because a lot of guys watching this, if you're like me, you're raised in a home with a Filipino immigrant dad who worked hard, who went to church, who did a lot of really good things, but they never really communicated to you as to what it meant to be a good husband, or give you rather three lessons that I've really taken to heart, three lessons that I carry with me over the last 10 years of marriage that I hope will impact you in a powerful way. I know there's a lot of guys watching this, Filipino guys watching this, who either want to be married, but the relationships just have not worked out to marriage yet. Or maybe you are married and you're in a really tough spot. I know a lot of Filipino guys, Filipino American guys who are struggling in their marriages. I get messages all the time. I have conversations with Pinoys a lot who are struggling in their marriages. They don't know why the fighting keeps happening. They don't know why the arguments won't stop. They feel like no matter what they do, they're doing something wrong. And I know a lot of Filipino guys watching this who are divorced, and your marriage is done, and you're trying to pick up the pieces and you're trying to figure out what to do next and how to hopefully create a new relationship. And so again, I'm not an expert, but these are the three lessons that I hope impact you, regardless of where you're at on the relationship marriage spectrum, wherever you're at in that season and whatever season you're in. I hope these three lessons impact you because they've really impacted me. So the first thing is that I learned, and it was a really tough lesson to learn after 10 years, was that I am really the energy setter in my home. And we hear a lot about how the man is the leader of the home, but I think it goes deeper than that. I really do believe that as men, as the husbands and the fathers, we really set the tone. I think one of the sayings that a good buddy of mine back in the day, at one of my previous jobs, he said, don't be affected by the room, you will affect the room, right? Or you should affect the room, meaning that oftentimes we walk into a room and we're kind of reacting or responding to the vibe or the energy that people are giving us, whether it be negative or positive. And in reality, we as the men in the home, the fathers, the husbands, we're really, whether we know it or not, and whether we're doing it intentionally or unintentionally, we are the energy setters in the home. Meaning that if we have a bad day and we bring that home, guess what? That home is just bad. It just gets heavy. If I get angry, if I get upset, I notice that the energy in the house changes. The kids get affected. My wife gets affected by that. So whether we know it or not, intentionally or unintentionally, we dictate the energy and the culture in the home. And if you are a husband and a father who's struggling with stress at work, maybe you're overcoming trauma, things like that, understand your trauma, the stress at work, that's not your fault, but it's your duty. It's your absolute duty to take control of those things and to heal those things and to take ownership of those things so you can be healthier for your family, right? The second thing that I learned, in addition to me being the energy setter in the house, was that I need to listen more. And not just listen, because I would hear this all the time from marriage counselors and like marriage therapists or whatever. I need to listen. And I thought I was really good at it because, I just let my wife talk and I just sit there and be quiet. But I was being quiet to let her speak and vent, but I really wasn't understanding what she was saying. And now what I'm trying to do is realize that I need to not listen to hear what she's saying so I can respond, but I need to listen so I can understand. And this is something I learned recently. I'm not expert at this. I've really struggled with this. I love to talk. If you guys know anything about me, I am a martial arts teacher by trade. I speak practically for a living, right? The amount of clients I would get, the amount of students that I can attain and retain is really based upon my ability to teach and speak. So I love to talk. The problem is, in a marriage, if you're not able to shut up and really listen and take in what your wife is telling you, and not just hear what she's saying, but really read into what she's saying and understand her, and really take it in, you're going to have a really hard time. And I had a really hard time with that for a very long time, until recently, in the last few years. And I'm still working on it. I'm not perfect at it, but it's definitely something I'm trying to work on. They say that you have one mouth and two ears for a reason, right? And that's the truth. Don't just listen to hear what your wife is saying so she gets it off her chest so you can say something. Because I think that was my mistake. I would always try to listen so I could respond. Now I want to listen so I can understand. And that's really hard for a lot of us guys to do, especially if you are a very take charge guy, a guy who's ambitious, a guy like me who wants to take charge and handle things, immediately. That's not what we're called to do in that moment. We are called to listen, to understand, not listen to talk or listen to respond. Okay, that's the second thing. The third thing that I took away is, and this is kind of a tough one, and this is something that I learned in the last few years. You have to be able to be the vessel for your wife's emotions. Now, what do I mean by that? You maybe you've heard of this. Maybe you've read about this in books or self-development books or marriage therapy books. But basically, it's this idea that as the man, you are strong enough to hold, like a bowl, like a solid concrete bowl, the emotions of your wife. And this is really tough, because if you're not healed, if you have traumas from your life and you get triggered easily and you're not healed, you have cracks in this bowl, right? This concrete bowl, so to speak. Your wife, when she's upset, when she's angry, when she's sad, when she's having a bad day, whatever, if you have cracks in this bowl, you can't hold those emotions for her and be strong for her. And she wants you to be strong for her. And this is something I learned the hard way. Oftentimes when she'd have a bad day, it would trigger something in me and I get really upset and I didn't want to talk about it, or maybe I would react because maybe she's mad about something that I did, and I would be so defensive that I would lash back. And that's not what you're supposed to do. And I realized that in the last few years, that is not healthy and it's not what you're supposed to do. I think many of us grew up in a Filipino household where you either said nothing to one another, you didn't talk, or maybe you just yelled at each other, you just argued, and that was how you communicated. Though neither one of those extremes is healthy. What's healthy as a man, the masculine thing to do, is to be strong enough to take your wife's emotions and hold them and just look at them and observe them, and don't let them affect you. And again, this is extremely hard to do, especially if you haven't done the work on yourself to heal. I was very fortunate to have mentors in my life, as well as a therapist that I work with, that have been able to kind of strengthen that bowl, so to speak, to help me identify the cracks in that bowl. So I'm strong enough not only to understand my own emotions, but also the emotions of my wife and my kids. Again, not perfect at it. This is a constant evolution. It's a constant process, and it never ends. But I feel like I'm at a point where I can say that I am not reactive to what my wife feels and says. I am more, I try to let it resonate with me, if that makes any sense. Not to say I don't get upset, not to say that I don't get irritated at things, but when she says something or she gets upset, whether it be something I did or something someone else did, I can kind of look at that, hold it for a second, take a look at it, and respond in a proper way, not lashing out, not screaming. Now, a lot of guys think that, oh, you're being a doormat. You're just letting your wife walk all over you, and that's not true. They're kind of the same way when I am working a protective detail. If I'm dealing with a individual that might be a potential threat, I don't scream at them and start yelling and freaking out. The more calm I am with an individual, the more calm they'll be. Calm is contagious, as they say, right? I was speaking to a buddy of mine who also works a protective detail at another district, school district here in North Texas, and he was former NYPD. And he said when he was on the beat in the roughest parts of New York City, he would tell me, he's like, the more calm you are, the more you're able to process the information, the more often the bad guys don't react in kind, right? Oftentimes there's certain times where you have to be aggressive, but those are rare. If you can play it calm, people stay calm. If you lose your cool, people lose their cool. So again, the third thing I learned is to be cool. And I'm still working on it, but I'm strong enough now to notice the cracks in the bowl, in the vessel. And so now, because of those things, and because of the fact I identified those things and had professional help working on those things, I can contain the emotions of my wife and my kids better. Again, not perfect at it, but I am much more confident in saying, I think my wife would agree with me, that I am much better at it, that I don't lose my cool as much, that I am much more self-controlled, and I'm much more composed. All right, again, this is not easy to do. This takes work. It is extremely hard to do, especially if you're a Filipino guy. And this has been proven, Filipinos are the most emotional ethnicity on the planet. They've done studies. It's really hard for us. And many of us have traumas in our past family life, in our past relationships, romantic relationships, that may have not been healed and they carried into the current relationship that you're in. And I want to let you know, again, it's not your fault that those things happened, all right? But it is your duty, and it is your absolute masculine duty to heal yourself and to identify those things so you can be better, all right? So you can be better for not only yourself, but for your family, okay? Your family only get, one chance really at this, okay? This family stuff, right? Maybe you have a wife that maybe gets second, third chances. But for me, I want to make sure that I do this right. And I know that you do too, right? And again, I could talk about all the cool masculine stuff, weightlifting, fighting, shooting, all that cool stuff that I really love to do. But I find that the thing that really affects men is relationships. And it's the thing that affects most of us, including myself, right? The quality of our life is defined by our relationships. The most important relationship you as a man will ever have is with your wife. All right, guys. So I hope that these 3 lessons that I've learned, often the hard way, help you. And I really hope that you can take it into your relationship, whether it be your current relationship or your future relationship as well. Take care, guys. I'll see you next week.